Well, it depends. It depends on how that terminology is used. I know in a lot of church circles today, praise and worship means contemporary style music. I think around here, if you would ask people praise and worship, and the way that I would want to answer that question, I guess, is and since I'm the one answering, I get to answer it the way I want to, right?
Yes, sir.
That praise is an essential part of worship. So I'm not fond of the practice of calling the music in the church service or the musical portion the praise and worship, because I think worship incorporates all that we do on Sunday morning, which means our verbal praise of God.
And how do you define praise and worship?
Wow. How do we define praise and worship? I would define it as two things I see that happen in praise and worship. And maybe this isn't a good definition, but two things happen. Number one, a believer, a follower of Jesus Christ, is ushered into the presence of God. And that can happen through music, it can happen through prayer, it can happen when you're confronted by Scripture, it can happen when you're walking in the woods, it can happen really anywhere, where you meet God and you realize who you are and who He is, and you in your heart surrender to Him. You go, God, you're amazing, you're awesome.
Praise and worship is often is reflected or defined as an action, but it's really also an attitude of recognizing, number one, who God is. And there's several places in Scripture where we see someone who really has an encounter with God.
Praise and worship?
I love the words, first of all. And most of the time they're used, together. But to me, there's a bit of a difference between them. And because I think of praise, I think of myself or people, lifting ourselves up to God. My hands are raised because, I feel like what's happening is I am focusing in praise on who God is. And the wonder of that and the majesty of that and the beauty of who God is something that just lifts us up out of ourselves.